Well, this is it, and here we go with another great edition of Inside EMS. I am your host, Chris Saballero, coming back to you for year 10. That's right, this is year 10 of the Inside EMS podcast. Happy to be with you. And you can see, if you're watching us on video, we've been doing video the last few shows. Here he is, my good friend, the man of the hour, too sweet to be sour. The ladies know he's the man with the power. Kelly Grayson, KG, what's going on in world famous Pitkin, Louisiana? You got some nice digs there in Pitkin, Louisiana.
That's my Hobbit hole background because there's so much laundry piled on the futon in my office that it's embarrassing. So I have my Hobbit hole background.
Well, very cool. We were hoping to get the beanbag chair with the Shiner Buck, and we still haven't worked that
and the
thing
Cheetos,
out.
yeah, we need the Cheetos too.
So now that we're live and doing video, man, you're gonna have to start to step up for the audience there a little bit.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to do some house cleaning. It's just I've been so worn out and tired and stuff with and pressed for time. I have one area of the house that I don't clean regularly, and unfortunately that's my office, and that's where I stuff everything. Yeah. So if I have laundry that I don't want to fold and put away, or if I have a box from Amazon that I need to open and get out and break down the box, it all goes in the office. So it's become a bit cluttered.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I do is I've used my second bedroom now. It's my daughter's room. She doesn't come very often, but I've used it. So I've got a sliver of the bedroom for my clean t-shirts of her bed, a sliver of the bed for my clean pants, sliver of the bed for my clean underwear and socks. So I don't put them away anymore. I just kind of file them. And then I just go in and
exactly what I do.
Now I do fold them over and make sure the t-shirts don't get in the fold the pants over, but I just don't put them away, right? So I got a filing system on my daughter's bed of where my clothes go, and I think it works out well, man. So what can you do? But so today we continue on the literary tour of Stephen Kelly Grayson, and you are now being seen again in another book, but Not Broken, Hope and Healing, book 2. And this really is talking about PTSD. I think that there's a lot of things, Kelly, that's been happening over the past few weeks where we've been dealing with, EMS people getting, indicted and, murder and all this stuff we're talking about. It brings us back to PTSD. It brings us back to resilience. It brings us back to, the premise of how do we take care of ourselves. And you wrote chapter 15, Gravestones. You were nice enough to send me the book this morning. I read about 4 of the chapters. It's about 15 or so authors that kind of shared their own story. And yours is something that I read with great entertainment. I mean, you use your tongue prettier than we know the line from
golly, Mr.
That's
Lamar.
right. From if you haven't seen Blazing Saddles, but anyway, we won't go there.
Because my mind is a raging
torrent of
rivulets of thought cascading into a waterfall of creative alternatives.
I mean, you need to get out more. You're quoting too many movies, but anyway, I think it's interesting, and I think it's good really to talk about resilience. I do want to talk about the stories because I think we all have those stories to where we had a bad call and we really kind of question our medicine to say, did we do harm here? But first off, tell us a little bit about this book. How'd you get involved with it? What does it mean? And share with the listeners.
I belong to a little author community in Texas called the Northeast Texas Troublemakers or the North Texas Troublemakers, and it's kind of a artist colony. I'm the honorary Louisiana member, but it's kind of an artist colony of writers and that sort of thing. And we all kind of share similar interests. And this book is compiled by Cedar Sanderson, who is quite a talented illustrator. She did the cover of my Kindred novel. And it's a bit of a labor of love for her about PTSD. She's a sufferer. Other loved ones are sufferers. And she put out a call for authors for this anthology. This is the second book in the series of Messages of Hope and Healing. The first was You Can't Go Home Again. And it was pretty heavily weighted toward the toll that public safety and public service and military service in particular take on the people who provide those things. This book, but Not Broken, was meant to be a hopeful message, stories of hope and healing with PTSD stories with a hopeful ending. I had the perfect thing for it. Being a PTSD sufferer myself, it was easy to write that stuff. The words came easily, the emotions it conjured, not so much. So I kind of did what Hemingway said. I sat at the typewriter and bled for a little while, and that's what Gravestones became.
And blood is what you did. I mean, when you talk about this story, and I do want to get into the story a little bit, because I think we all have these stories to where we question again, did we do harm to our patients? But when we start to think about this, one of the things that I gathered as I read the other people's stories and then eventually got to your story was, do we have to start to think about journaling these things? Do we have to start to think about writing these things? Even if we're not going to publish them, Kelly, I mean, we keep these things buried inside of us like they're, like they're war wounds, right? Which they are, pardon me. But now as I was reading this, I was almost feeling a little bit of relief for myself to say, you know what? I'm not the only one that has this feeling, right? Because I have a call that I just totally screwed up, and I do want to talk about that with you, but there's got to be value in this for everybody, even if you're not going to publish them.
Yeah. And that's one of the cool things about this book is this book has perspectives from all of life. It's not just military and public service and public safety people and EMS people. All of us can suffer from PTSD. As the saying goes, it's not what's wrong with you, it's what's happened to you. And everybody has obstacles and whatnot in their life, and traumatic experiences that kind of shape who you are. And if you let them, they will shape who you are. But they will certainly mold your coping mechanisms, and sometimes into harmful coping mechanisms. I know that my PTSD did not come from EMS. It came from growing up in my house. We were it wasn't abusive per se, but there was a whole lot of fighting in my childhood and that sort of thing. And it wasn't until I started speaking to a professional counselor that I realized what triggers my PTSD, and it's being in a conflict where I see no resolution from it. And if I'm in a fight and I can't extricate myself from it, my reaction is to go nuclear. And my instinct has always been win the fight on the first blow. And luckily, most of those times, I'm in a setting where those blows are verbal, and I don't punch somebody or stomp them to death. But it's that's not a healthy way to live, and that's not a healthy way to live with a girlfriend or fiance or wife or loved one in any way, where you can't have healthy conflict because you fear conflict so much. And that's what it is for me. And I'd like to you probably read Kat Hell's story. And Kat is quite an accomplished woman. She is, I mean, this woman kicks so much ass, they import cheap foreign ass to meet the demand. And she's an accomplished hunter and writer, and wrote a book called Handgun Hunting. But she suffered from, through an abusive relationship, and that kind of molded her coping mecknisms into and set her down a path that just where that cycle repeated itself, and she was able to break out. And I think that's the big message of this book, is that it can be beaten. You can beat it back. You can develop healthier mechanisms. There is hope, and there's light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not the train coming. It's salvation.
Well, I mean, sometimes it is the train. You just got to get out of the way, right?
Yeah.
But I think that one of the things that you got to remember too is this is where your emotional intelligence comes in. So no one can make you feel something you choose not to feel. And we've talked about that. And my ability, I can't handle what's happening around me, but what I can handle is how I react to it. But one of the things that I think we're taught, and one of the things that I think that you say in your growing up, kind of think we all have it a little bit, is we don't want to be bullied. We don't want to be pushed around.
No.
We want to be able to defend ourselves. But in the absence of that, that doesn't mean it's weakness, right?
Yeah.
It means that we have the ability to control our own emotions. But it was
And
really interesting.
because we fear those sort of things, sometimes we see something as bullying or confrontation when it's really not,
Yeah.
because we're always on that hair trigger.
Yep, that's a good point. But I want to talk a little bit about this chapter you did. Chapter 15 in the book, But Not Broken, Hope and Healing, book 2 is called Gravestones. And you start off and you really kind of pull people really into this chapter. And I'm really kind of wondering, well, what the heck are you talking about? And you keep going and you keep going. And then, it really just kind of lays out. But you talk about a call where you talk about your gravestones, and you're using this in the character of the gravestones are your calls that you're filling up in your cemetery of
Yeah.
PTSD,
Yeah.
which I thought was really kind of novel. And you kind of take us down, that people are going to die and we're going to see things, but you take us down the story of a gentleman who you call Frankie Maryland. And you kind of knew the guy. He was a great guy. Everybody kind of knew them in the town. And now he is in the process of a traumatic arrest, and you
Yeah.
have to take care of this. And you have to take care of this gentleman, but nothing is going right. You're doing everything you're supposed to do, but it's not going the way that it's supposed to go.
Yeah.
And it led you down a path of now saying, oh my God, did I kill him? And you hang on to this. But maybe just give us a little bit. We don't have the time to go into this
Yeah.
this very, very deep, but give us just a little bit of overview of the call of Frankie Maryland and what it
Yeah.
meant to you.
Well, first, I didn't do everything right. I did the most important thing wrong at the very beginning of the call. I didn't take a good report. I didn't do a good assessment. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And I should have either refused the transport or asked that someone else come along with me as an extra set of hands. But I was
Now,
too young and cocky.
I do want to add, though, this is, you say, your fourth call as a paramedic.
Yeah, my fourth call is a paramedic.
Yeah.
But I was one of those, there's two types of paramedics. There's the ones that are scared of their own shadow and the ones that think they're Superman. And I thought I was Superman, still do to a certain extent, but I just wasn't prepared. And it's my firm belief that at least in EMS, the horrible things we see aren't really the things that cause the PTSD. They may be for some, but we are our own worst critics. And the things that really stick with us, the stones in our personal psychic graveyard, are the patients we think we failed because we blame ourselves for the outcome because of something we thought we could have did better. I call it the coulda, woulda, shouldas. The if onlys will kick your butt. And I played the with onlys game. And long story short, despite my efforts, or probably as a cascade of events that began with my lack of effort, Frankie died. And as I was walking out of the hospital, his aunt was standing in the ambulance bay smoking a cigarette. And as I walked past her and tried to sneak past her, really, she put her hand on my arm, and I froze like a deer in the headlights. And she turned me around and she pulled my head down to hers and hugged me and whispered in my ear. She said, "Thank you for everything that you did. I know you did your best to save him." Whew. Shame will never burn you so hot as when a family member tells you thanks for killing their loved one. And that shook me. That shook me to the core. I still can't talk about it today without getting emotional. I went back to the ambulance station, stripped off my bloody clothes in a pile on the floor, turned on the hot water in the shower, and just crawled in and cried myself to sleep. And I woke up the next morning wondering, do I really have what it takes to succeed in EMS and to be good at this job? And that was my epiphany. And what helped that blow to my confidence and my arrogance is what made me in most extent the paramedic I am, because I decided that day to be equal to my ego to enhance my skills and knowledge, where I could walk the walk. And I've made that my North Star ever since. And but the other thing I discovered along the way is I used to have nightmares about Frankie Maryland. I had nightmares frequently about I wake up trying to suction that kid and him aspirating, drowning on his own blood, and me can't see the airway trying to tube him, and his heart rate and going ever lower. And I just wake up in cold sweats about that. But when I quit having those nightmares, when I started talking about it.
Yeah.
I stood up at an EMS conference and I broke down in tears in a keynote speech telling about this, and how I moved on and got past it. And I discovered along the way that talking about it made it go away. And I still, it upsets me, and I still blame myself to a certain extent, but it doesn't haunt me anymore. And that's the thing I discovered, is that you can learn to forgive yourself, and you can learn healthier coping mechanisms, and you can make friends with all those ghosts in your personal graveyard. And that's the way I look at it. With the help of some good people and a support system, I was able to make friends with the ghosts.
And I think that I think that we all have those calls, and I want to say good on you, man, that you have the opportunity to share this and really kind of think about the fact now that you are really doing the things that you've got to do to make a difference in your life, to really kind of feel these and kind of teach the skills that will allow people to know that it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to get emotional and have to hold your hand up and say, give me a second, right? Just as you did. Here's the powerful Kelly Grayson. Oh my God, ladies and gentlemen, he's human, right? And I think that we've got to remember that we make mistakes, we fail, we're gonna feel. And I think that these are things that we're not taught how to do. When it comes to making a mistake, we're taught, oh my God, you can't make mistakes, right? Oh my God, you can't. And I have one of these calls as well, and I try to deal a little bit differently with the emotion of the call. And I used to say for years, I'm going to do the best that I can. I'm going to get them to the hospital. I'm going to be as compassionate as I can be. When I get to the hospital and close the doors, my job is over. I don't want to go and ask about them. I don't want to find out how they did. I don't want to. I'm done, right?
And how'd that work out for you?
It worked for me. No, it worked for me, right? Because I did everything that I could, and then I had to disassociate myself. But I have those calls that I've been able to hang on to that have woke me up in the middle of the night. One was a 16-year-old girl. You walk in the house and you go up the stairs, and then there's a walkway that goes into the bedrooms. And I walked in with a 16-year-old girl swinging from that that balcony, and I still see her every now and again in her feet and her dress swinging back and forth because her 30-year-old boyfriend or whatever it was broke up with her. And what a waste, right? But I had one of the calls it was a pediatric arrest one morning. It was the first call of the day. You gotta love when you get the pediatric arrests in the first call, the first shot out of the box. And I had trouble intubating, regardless of how you prepare to intubate a pediatric patient, an infant. It never prepares you for how small that airway is. So it took me forever to get the tube. I finally got the tube. Then I finally got the IV. This is when we were doing IVs in pediatrics. And I did the cardinal rule, Kelly, of being in the back of the ambulance, and I stepped over the patient. And what did I do?
Jerked out your IV.
Picked out the IV. Now all of a sudden I didn't notice it right away, and now fluid is everywhere. Now I've got to defibrillate the patient, and I've got water everywhere. So then when I finally got that worked out, then I went back to the head and I took over from my partner. We didn't have fire. So we're going, and now all of a sudden I'm bagging. I'm trying to wrap the tube with the tape. I never use the tube tamers. I always use the tape, cut the tape, blah, 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 old school. And then all of a sudden I hit a bump, and boom, I drove that tube down into the freaking stomach. And then the next thing I did is I went to pull it out. What happened when I pulled it back? Boom,
pulled it all the way out.
Hit a bump, and I pulled it all the way out, right? Well, the kid died, and the kid was probably going to die regardless. We were working the code, but you know what? Me and my partner felt like crap the whole day. And, the last call of the day was a pediatric arrest as well.
Oh yeah.
And we tried to make amends, but we hang on to these things. And I held on to this for months and months and months of my failure to be, I don't know, adequate enough, that I made these mistakes and did things that I knew I shouldn't have done. We
Yeah.
know we shouldn't step over patients, right? We know we shouldn't jostle the tube when we're bouncing up and down. I should have told my partner to pull over so I could have managed.
Yeah.
But you've got to be able now to find ways, as you say, to make friends with these ghosts. But
Yeah.
man, I do want to ask you this. So I know you could probably pontificate on what I was saying, but I do want to change it a little bit as we're getting up there in time. I want to ask you, because you've now done a few of these. You've done this,
Mhm.
but not broken. Hope and Healing Book 2. You've done Perspectives Volume 1. You've done Perspectives Volume 2. And if you've not heard about Perspectives, this is a book on the paramedic, the ER nurse, and the officer, their view about the same call. But I do want to, I do want you to give some of your expertise in the writing of this to get your feelings out. Maybe you can't, maybe people can talk about it, Kelly. You said when you started to talk about it, they went away. Maybe people can talk about it, but maybe they can journal, maybe they can write. What tips do you give them?
Um, be honest and open. Be honest and open, and don't be your own critic. We are our own worst critics, and people, nothing makes me happier than say, Kelly, a lecture you gave, or a story you wrote, or something in your book inspired me to do this or do that, and to face my own demons, or I never thought I could write. The people that wrote Perspectives, I sent out a call to people that didn't think they had talent, and they discovered they did. I took a little structural editing, that people, most EMS people are not natural storytellers unless they're saying, so there I was, first in on the busload of hemophiliac Jehovah's Witnesses that crashed into the glass factory. But they don't know how to structure a story, so their writing craft is not polished, but their heart is there, and if they can put their heart into it, which they did in spades, you've got a great story there. And catharsis is important, and writing about it, journaling about it, telling someone else about it is important. The part of the theme in my book was, in my story, was, the opposition of your manhood versus your humanity. And as a stoic, do you let those things show? And my concept of what being a man was you don't let those things show when you suffer in silence, and that's not healthy. It may work for some people, but it was not healthy for me. And finding a place where I could coexist, where feeling something and being strong at the same time were not mutually incompatible. So finding that place really helped me a lot. And one of the things that helped me get to that place was talking about it, or alternative form, putting it down on paper. One of the most popular EMS blogs back in the day, which is Justin Shore's blog, The Happy Medic. And The Happy Medic came about as a suggestion from his counselor, a PTSD counselor. He had a bad call where he was, I believe, almost crushed in a structural collapse and off work for quite some time, and having to deal with the emotional and physical trauma of that, and the frustration of not being able to get back on the job.
Right.
His therapist said, why don't you journal? So he started a blog, and it was a great blog, and through my interaction with Justin, we were able to start a great charity, the Kills to Kick Cancer. So great things can happen if you open yourself up, and you're brave, and you put yourself out there, because what you're going to find is that people are not going to look at you like you're weak. They're not going to go, oh man, you just don't need to be in this profession. What you're going to find is many thousands of people will reach out to you and say, been there, felt the same thing. I'm glad you had the guts to say it. And now that you have, I have the guts to say it. And I think that is probably one of the best healing mechanisms I can cultivate, is knowing that I'm not alone, and that there is help and healing at the end. So But hey, that's what I think. We'd like to hear what you think. We'd like you to buy the book, But Not Broken, Messages of Help and Healing, Volume 2. But for myself and co-host Chris Cebollero, we're urging you guys, take care of yourself, cultivate a good support system, and don't hurt yourself and put yourself as blame for things that go wrong. Thanks for tuning in to Inside EMS. We're going to catch you guys next week.